Welcome you, Kaiser, in my podcast. I'm very happy and very delighted that we're having a chance to talk about the innovation. And in this episode, I would like to tap into the innovation topic from multiple dimensions, such as mindset, culture, and organization as well. Looking for the innovations, I'm very happy to have you here. And without further ado, let me introduce my guest speaker, which is Kaiser Young. He's co-founder of Platypus. It's a very difficult name for your company to pronounce it. I'm very interested in why you came up and you name your company that way. He's also the author of the book, author of the Crack the Code of 8 Surprising Keys to Unlock Innovation, which will be launched in September this year. I'm looking forward. So Kaiser, welcome you in my podcast, and yeah.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to be here and get a chance to spend some time with you. Just to answer your question about the platypus is actually a very unique animal. It's got the bill of a duck, it's got the tail of a beaver, it's got other body parts, it's an egg-laying mammal, and it's a semi-aquatic creature that's really a mixture of a number of different inputs to create this surprisingly unexpected, uncommon animal. And that's what we believe innovation is. When you look at it from a process, it's drawing inspiration from a number of different areas. It's getting inputs and insights from all different businesses to really trigger your creativity and your imagination to create something uncommon, unusual, and of something of value. And we thought the platypus was a great representation of how we approach innovation. And that's why we named the company Platypus Lab.
Wow, fascinating. I never came to my mind to came with such idea. It's really great. Okay, let's tap into it. I had a chance to listen one of your talks, and what was very fascinating for me, it's your concept. You believe that even the most transformation innovation can be fast and accessible for all. Can you please say more why you believe in that? Because when we talk about innovation, it's a big concept, but you are bringing innovation in a slightly different angle.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great way to start this conversation. I mean, we've had the opportunity over the years to work with a number of different organizations, both big and small, across a wide range of industries. And what we've typically seen is that organizations define innovations as these large, transformational, disruptive initiatives that unless it's $1 billion idea, it doesn't count. And in that context, it seems unreachable for many of us to be innovative, like coming up with the next $1 billion idea, shooting rockets into space, etc. Instead, we define innovation, we call it micro innovation. It's everyday acts of creativity that becomes accessible to all of us. How we serve our customers, how we recruit new talent, how we optimize our operational processes. And these small everyday acts of creativity can then stack up and lead to some pretty big transformation and change within organizations. And when you think about innovation in that context, that it's small, everyday acts of innovation, it becomes something that we can all do and we can all tap into and make a meaningful impact within the organizations that we work at.
It's a fascinating concept because you mentioned micro innovation. Then it's coming another question to my mind, which is what about the mindset thing? Because like you mentioned, micro innovation, but behind that, what is also the mindset for the innovators? What are characteristics which you can describe for the innovators?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have a number of different mindsets that we like to share with our clients. I mean, I can share a few of them with you, but they didn't come from Platypus Labs. It came from our experience working with these organizations. And in the process, we've had a chance to interview hundreds of business leaders, entrepreneurs, to learn about how they approach innovation. And that's how we cultivated these mindsets. But in addition to interviewing leaders and executives, we've also had the chance to interview folks like artists and musicians, teachers, athletes, and even hackers. And across this widely diverse group of really amazing people, we discovered these common approaches to innovation, these core mindsets of some of the most successful innovators. And we have about 8 or 9 of them, and I'll share a couple of them with you. Like one of my most favorites is this notion, this mindset of start before you're ready, right? Because in many organizations, we see the innovation process become inhibited by overzealous planning, writing 3-year business plans, doing extensive customer surveys, and getting every stakeholder in the organization to approve. And while those are very important parts of the innovation process, this mindset of starting before you're ready is not waiting for the conditions to be ideal or exact, but leaping into action more immediately and trusting your instinct to course correct and figure out the unknowns along the way. We like to say that the most fascinating, successful innovators out in the marketplace, they start the innovation journey more with a compass, a direction of where they want to go, rather than waiting to create a detailed map. So this notion of starting before you're ready, I think you can really embrace in larger organizations. Like, don't become paralyzed by the process, but rather get started faster, because smaller experiments and testing new ways, fresh approaches, gets you to the ideal solution much quicker. So one of our most popular mindsets that we like to teach when we work with larger organizations is start before you're ready.
Okay, but what about then customer needs, like finding a solution, like a pain points? What about that aspect? Because when we read about the innovation, I mean, offering the product into the market, it's feel the needs what your clients want, like a pain points. How would you like to tackle that part into the innovation as well?
Yeah, for sure. So we have our innovation process that we like to follow with our clients. And step 1 is all about customer empathy. Because too often we see, this isn't a quote, I think it's attributed mostly to Scott Cook from Intuit, but he used to say, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And too many times as innovators, you find a cool technology or an unused resource or an undervalued asset, and you try to innovate around that and give it to your customers. But instead, when you take the time to really understand the pain points, the needs and wants of your customer, you can really discover some fresh, surprisingly unexpected innovations and solutions. So for us, step 1 is all about customer empathy, understanding what they're trying to accomplish, the specific tasks and jobs, if you will, that they're trying to hire your products and services to do. But we spend a lot of time digging into the pain points. And the pain points are not just functional pain points that they might experience when they're consuming your product or service, but pain points might also be social pain points, like how they're perceived by their peers. It might be emotional pain points, how they feel as it relates to risk, or other uncertainties of using your products or service. So that empathy process is such an important part of the innovation journey, because it has to start there. And again, not falling in love with the solution, but rather taking the time to almost bathe in the problem to help identify new ways to serve your customers better.
Yeah, this is absolutely right concept. And we used to have that tendency to fall in love with our product and see it as a great one. Kaiser, I know you have been working with many organizations. What would be your advice for the organization to pivot to the one which they want to step into the innovation part, where they are like maybe a little bit behind? What you might advise for the business owners or leaders in the corporate, how to stimulate that process? Like you mentioned, start before you are ready, and not fall in love with the problem, but solution which you are offering. What will be the organization change which leaders could boost and facilitate for the innovation?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every organization's a little bit different in terms of their needs and their culture and their organizational structure. So what we like to do at Platypus is we typically start out with an assessment. We call it an innovation assessment to measure the behaviors, the attitudes and mindsets of the teams. And from there, we can identify certain gaps of, is it more cultural elements that you need to change in an organization to build more of an innovative mindset? Is it more skills and frameworks, things like that? So the assessment usually gives us a nice perspective to understand the current state, but also benchmark progress for organizations as they continue to try to become more innovative, in their respective industries. But across the board, there's a couple of things that we typically see that we are almost, like predictable areas for improvement within organizations. Number one is just this idea of looking outside of your industry to gain new perspective and really inspiration. Stephen Jobs, one of my favorite quotes from him, he said, creativity is really nothing new or different. It's just having enough dots to connect. And as we grow older in our careers and become more experienced in our industries, we get very good at the one dot, right? We're an operator, we're a salesperson, we're an account person, whatever it is, but we lose sight of all the other dots out there. And so when you take the time to really kind of nourish your creativity and your imagination by studying other industries, like I mentioned, we interview artists and musicians and teachers to see how they approach innovation. You gain much more of more dots, if you will, to create that inspiration. You are able to recognize patterns and apply those patterns to the challenges and opportunities that you're faced with. So it's really, I think, a lot of times it starts with having your team exposed to many different ways that you can solve a problem, not just the way your industry solves it. So challenging the core assumptions of your industry, challenging the status quo, to find fresh and unique ways to solve the same problems. So that's number one. Number two, for most of the places that we've been able to successfully kind of transition the culture to innovation, it's really creating the right environment for innovation, right? Where it's okay. I don't necessarily like the term fail fast. It's more learn fast. So how do we experiment? How do we try new things? How is it okay for organizations to take some responsible risk to try to improve performance, better serve the customers, and to drive growth? A lot of times though, organizations, you just don't want to step out of line or throw out an idea that might be perceived by your peers as ruffling feathers or, something totally outlandish. But when you create that safe environment where it's okay to pitch new ideas and to try new things, that's where we see the innovation process really flourish within organizations. So that would be my first two starting pieces of advice: is driving more inspiration, getting more input, and then providing that safe environment, building the balanced mix of rituals and rewards that make it okay for team members to feel empowered to apply their creativity to solve some of the challenges or seize new opportunities in new and unique ways.
Yeah, it's giving our listeners a lot of hope, because my old way of thinking was you need to be born to be innovative. But what you are representing and what you are teaching us, it's really a process to be open-minded, be sensitive about all the dots. And can you also agree with that statement that innovation is applicable in every department? Basically, this is basically what you are teaching as well with your company. Actually, doesn't matter if you are working in the finance, not necessarily in R&D part, like a pure innovation, but I think in every organization we could be innovators, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about, no matter what your title is, embracing a secondary title, a new role of that of an innovator or even a business artist or an entrepreneur within your organization, because those really are the skills and mindsets that will allow you to win in these highly competitive times. And just to go back to what you said earlier, I mean, the research is crystal clear. We are all, as human beings, hardwired to be creative. That's the way we were born. But some of us, we outgrew it, right? Through our work environments, maybe our parental guidance and following the rules and drawing between the lines. We forgot how to be creative. But we all have this tremendous capacity. It's a natural resources that we have within us that when unlocked and applied and harnessed, it can do amazing things. So yes, we all have the ability to take our creativity and apply it to innovative outcomes, regardless of your role or your function within the organization.
Awesome. This is really awesome. My next question is related to the current situation, because I know your core expertise is in terms of digital transformation. So Kaiser, what will be your advice for the companies who are trying to pivot it and considering the digital part as part of the innovation? Because for some of them might be not the core part of the digitalization, but for some really existing one, but how to move into that digital part from the beginning, from the scratch, pivoting your business. And my second question, what will be the advice for the one who are already, but they can be innovating in that aspect? What would you like to advise in those two elements?
Yeah, for sure. That's a pretty broad ranging topic, and digitalization, the transformation, offers so many great benefits to organizations, right? The data that you're able to collect, the insights on your customers, you can gather the customer experience you can create, and it can be an internal transformation or external. But for us, what we oftentimes see is almost going back to that mindset of falling in love with the problem and not the solution. We see many organizations grab onto that shiny new thing. It's a new app or a new technology or a new software that allow them to do something without truly understanding kind of the challenge or the core issue that they're trying to solve, right? So when you step back and really understand, okay, what are we trying to do in this digital environment? How are we going to measure success? How are we going to benchmark performance and really drill down to the specific goals? That's where the best transformation in digital really happens. Oftentimes we just see something cool, like a competitor is doing this, or there's somebody else in an industry that did that, like, let's try that in our organization. And it just sometimes doesn't work. So starting with a very comprehensive strategy is critically important. The second part that we see digital transformation often fail is just the embracing of the technology within the teams. So teams don't necessarily understand why we're doing it this way, or because it's a new tool, it's a new way. You're breaking their patterns, right? You're forcing them to adopt new systems and new processes. And that really does require a lot of time invested in the people, not just in training, but for them to really understand the benefits of why we're going through this change. And oftentimes we just, see companies turn it on and expect full adoption from the team and the organizations without the proper communication strategy, if you will, to understand why. We just jump to kind of the mechanics of how the system is going to work. So a lot of times we see companies invest lots of money in like new operational systems, new CRM strategies, and really trying to transition to CRM or to a digital strategy. But it fails in one, clearly identifying the goals or just having a mishit there, and then not really taking the time to embrace it across their team. So those would be the two areas. Now, each company is a little bit different. But those are kind of the two kind of high level areas that we would see or provide recommendations on. Make sure you're keeping your eye out on the strategy and then the people side of the transformation.
Yeah, this is really a good combination for those two ones. Kaiser, I have a question regarding your book, because I'm very interested in, and I hope we can tap and you can pull the curtains a little bit more. What is your book? What is basically the because the title is saying, crack the code of 8 surprising keys to unlock innovations. Can you say more about that book?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for asking. It's coming out on September 14th of 2021, and I'm pretty excited. For me, it's been kind of this process, this journey of 30 years of being in business, and I've seen innovation and creativity be applied to a number of different industries and works, and it's really what we talked about earlier, making innovation accessible to all of us. And again, too often we find, the innovation process to be paralyzing because it's this big, gigantic process. And we try to break it down in this book to become more of a field manual. So everybody out there can try to be more innovative in their respective roles. So it covers 4 core mindsets, some of my 4 favorite mindsets of innovators. And for each one of those mindsets, I provide a couple of tactics that you can deploy against your jobs, like immediately. So these aren't like things that you have to buy or invest in. These are tools and techniques that you can start to build into your day-to-day routine to drive some more creativity and innovation within your day-to-day responsibilities. So again, it's really designed to take something that's big and squishy and nebulous up here and make it very much more practical and approachable. So I view it more as a field guide for everyday people who want to become everyday innovators.
Yeah, this is really, I'm looking forward. I already placed my order and I'm waiting.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Kaiser, can you share with us what are the great achievements which you are proud of your clients, which they came up with innovations, so our listeners could be also inspired? Maybe something like it was not perceived as a super shiny, but it came to the solution, like it was really great innovation. Do you have from your history experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't necessarily share the names of the clients with you, but for example, we have one financial services client where they came to us and said, we just do not have a culture of innovation. Everyone just likes to come in 8 to 5, do their job, and no one wants to try anything new and different. So we built out a 3-year innovation strategy, understanding that behaviors and attitudes, you can't just change that overnight. It takes a series of changes and programs to really turn that giant ship. But for these guys, what we started with is that assessment that I mentioned, and we found that most of the people have tremendous curiosity. They want to do things differently, but they just didn't have the tools or the techniques to do so. And so that assessment gave us a little bit more of a roadmap on which way we should go. And we ended up running a number of different innovation boot camps, just very lightweight training programs to show people, like, here's a new way of thinking, or let's tackle this challenge, but apply a couple of different frameworks that might be something you've never done before. And we were slowly able to extract some of these people into these boot camps. They got repatriated into their organization. And slowly we started to see, like, once people had the tools and the frameworks and they had some success using them, they were starting to now become these everyday innovators. And so organizations like a very stern kind of formal financial services company was really able to add creativity, not because the process said you had to, or because your leader said you had to be more innovative, but just by showing them tools and how to do it and showing them kind of the success of, hey, you can do it too, all of a sudden ideas started to flow. And it's amazing because that creative vibe, you put it in one person and challenge them to solve a problem in a slightly different way, it spills over into their team, into their organization.
A positive virus, isn't it?
Yeah. And you build this amazing creative momentum that becomes unstoppable. So that's more of a longer term initiative, but we had tremendous success by using our assessment to identify kind of the gaps in an organization and building a clear strategy that over a couple of years, these guys are now running innovation challenges, they're doing hackathons, they're coming up with ideas, and they're really reinventing the way they serve their customers, which really was the end goal of, improving the customer experience and driving growth and better performance. Now, having said that, we've also tackled very specific challenges and used our frameworks and techniques to unlock new ideas and new ways of doing things. So we worked with a medical device company that had a go-to-market strategy problem. It was hard to differentiate from their competitors. We worked with an accounting firm that had a process issue. So very tactical challenges that, again, if you think within the box, if you will, within your one dot, it's really hard to come up with new ways of solving things. And as you know, like one of the techniques we covered in the session that you previously attended, just something as simple as what we call the judo flip, using oppositional thinking to really unlock new ways of doing things. Just teaching a few techniques like that to look at a challenge and look at it from a slightly different perspective, all of a sudden you've got hundreds of new ideas that can drive the performance that you're looking for. So yeah, many of these organizations, we've really had the opportunity to use these techniques and frameworks to drive efficiencies, build culture, accelerate sales. But most importantly, it's really building the critical mindsets and skills within the teams so they can become innovators on their own moving forward.
Yes, it's fascinating what you are saying. And I also know that this is unfair statement if leader is saying, my team is not creative. It's something which needs to be unlocked, like you mentioned, and look from completely different perspective, because we as a human from nature, we are creative. It's even the mindset thing to understanding that concept. And then we can shift it around. Yep. It's really great. Yeah, actually, those are all my questions which I was having. So it was big pleasure, Kaiser, to talk to you. Where we can find you? I mean, if you can give to our listeners your website or where they can find you, that would be really awesome. So a part of the book, which will be linked as well. Can you give more direction where they can find you and listen more and read more about your project and stuff?
Absolutely. So our company website is platypuslabs.com. And you can reach us there. There's a contact link there. The best way is if you use the email address innovate@platypuslabs.com. That reaches me and my core team. So we'd be happy to answer any questions and provide any support or resources to help you continue or start your innovation journey. So we look forward to hearing from you. But on our site, you can find a number of different resources that may help you kind of unlock your creativity and start becoming an everyday innovator.
Yeah, this is awesome. I mean, I like that statement that everybody could be innovative, regardless of the title. It will be like a secondary title for us. So, Kaiser, thank you very much, and looking forward for receiving your book. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.